It was one of those still golden evenings in Oakbrook when the street lamps cast a gentle honeyed glow over the sidewalks and a soft breeze whispered through the leaves. Officer James Miller, dressed casually after his shift, strolled hand in hand with his wife, Sarah, their fingers interlocked like two puzzle pieces finally fitting together. By their side trotted Max, their retired canine German shepherd, whose silhouette seemed to float in the hush of the night. These walks had always been sacred, a ritual that soothed the ache of years of waiting and loss. Tonight, though, the air carried a different tension, as if something unseen hovered at the edge of their peaceful routine. Without a sound, Max froze. His ears shot up, his body coiled with purpose. He let out a soft, urgent whine, the kind that runs right through your chest and makes you listen. He tugged James's leash, pulling him and Sarah toward a darker patch at the park's border. "Easy, buddy," James murmured, sharing a worried look with Sarah. Then they heard it, a faint, trembling cry that rode on the wind like a fragile secret. What could possibly be out there calling for help at this hour? Following Max's lead, they found themselves beside an old, rusty trash bin where a thin, threadbare blanket lay crumpled on the damp ground. Sarah gasped. Nestled inside was a tiny baby, so small she seemed sculpted from moonlight and fear, her whole body trembling as if she might shatter. Her whispers barely rose above her breath. Without thinking, James knelt and gathered her into his arms. Instantly, he felt her skin, so cold, so delicate, it felt like holding a piece of cracked porcelain. Behind him, Sarah's phone flashed blue as she dialed for emergency help, her heart pounding with memories she'd tried so hard to lock away. All the while, Max stood sentinel, his dark eyes locked on the baby, as though he too vowed to protect this tiny stranger. How had fate led them here to cradle this child in the quiet of a summer night? Nurses rushed forward, whisking the baby away to the neonatal intensive care unit, while James and Sarah remained frozen in the lobby, hearts hammering in unison. Max lay at their feet, his head resting on his paws, gaze fixed on the doors through which the child had vanished. Each beat of his strong chest seemed to echo their fear. Was she going to be all right? Moments felt like hours before a nurse emerged, her face lined with compassion. She was severely undernourished, and her body temperature was alarmingly low. She explained softly, caring not to shatter the fragile silence. "We've warmed her and stabilized her breathing." But her voice trailed off as she chose her words. "Our cardiologist suspects a congenital heart defect." "It's serious. We need more tests right away." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, tears shining in her eyes as the sting of abandonment, long buried surface fierce. James wrapped his arm around her, holding her tears and her worries close, both of them clinging to a thread of hope even as the world felt like it was crumbling. What would this child endure before finding a safe harbor? Then came footsteps, steady, familiar. Dr. Daniel Reeves, the hospital's esteemed cardiothoracic surgeon and James's old friend, entered in scrub greens, exhaustion etched into his face. He settled beside them quietly. "I've reviewed her tests," he began, voice hushed. "She's stubborn in a good way, but time is not on her side. Without intervention, she won't pull through." Daniel described a complex, high-risk surgery that could give the baby a fighting chance, a chance measured in minutes, skill, and faith. James and Sarah looked at each other, eyes pooling with fierce resolve. "Do it," James said, voice low but unwavering. Sarah squeezed his hand so hard it hurt, then reached down to stroke Max's hair. The dog lifted his chin, calm yet alert, as if to say, "I'm with you all the way." Could love and courage truly tip the scales of life and death? In the antiseptic hush of the waiting area, each second dragged. Sarah and James sat side by side, fingers entwined, shoulders touching, a single anchor in a storm of uncertainty. Overhead lights glowed too brightly, each beep from the operating room like a hammer on their nerves. At their feet, Max lay as still as stone, ears twitching at every distant footstep, every murmur, his dark eyes wide in quiet prayer. With each passing minute, they felt the weight of their choice. To trust in human hands, in science, in love, would their faith be rewarded? Then at last the doors swung open and Dr. Reeves stepped out, scrub cap in hand, lines of relief softening his face. "She's stable," he announced quietly. The surgery went well. Sarah exhaled, a sound that seemed to lift a lifetime of tension off her chest. Tears streamed down her face as James pulled her into a fierce embrace. Max's tail swept softly against the floor, a gentle celebration. In that moment, exhausted, relieved, trembling, they realized they weren't just rescuing a life. They were weaving themselves into a new story, one of unexpected family, of hope reborn. Could this small miracle truly belong to them? Weeks passed in a blur of quiet hospital halls. Baby Hope, as the nurses whispered, lay in her crib with tubes and wires like a cradle of science around her tiny body. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, each breath of victory. Sarah sat by her side, whispering lullabies as gentle as a feather's touch, her fingertips brushing the baby's hand with reverence. James hovered behind, smoothing blankets and offering silent support, while Max kept vigil just outside the door, a guardian who refused to wander. Every flutter of eyelids, every hint of a smile, was a triumph they celebrated in hushed tones. Was this the beginning of a forever? One afternoon, as sunlight poured through the window and dust motes danced like tiny fairies, Sarah confessed her lingering fear. "I used to think I'd never have a family," she whispered, voice trembling. James took her hand. "Maybe we just didn't know what our family looked like," he replied, nodding toward Hope and then down at Max. The dog lifted his head at the sound of his name, gaze warm and steady. In that silent exchange they understood. Fate had guided them here, and love had shown them the way home. Could a stray cry beneath the stars truly have led them to each other? Eventually the tubes were removed, and Hope's cheeks bloomed with color. Her tiny fingers gripped Sarah's and tugged at James's sleeve in the sweetest claim staked by a child for her parents. The hospital staff marveled at the devotion of this trio, a dog, a couple and a child bound by a miracle of instinct and care. Then one day a social worker appeared with gentle news. No one else had come forward for Hope. They could become her forever family. Their answer was wordless. A look passed between them, hearts full. Later, as Sarah signed adoption papers and whispered, "You're home now, sweetheart," Max stood nearby, ears high, as though he'd known all along. Would this tiny soul finally have a place to belong? On a crisp morning, they emerged from the hospital into a bright new world. Sarah cradled Hope close, wrapped in a soft blanket, while James walked by with Max, whose tail wagged in gentle arcs of joy. Their first stop was the very spot in Oakbrook Park where it had all begun. Sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the path in gold and green. James slipped an arm around Sarah as she gazed down at their daughter, eyes glistening with wonder and love. Max patted ahead, then glanced back to make sure his family followed. At the park's edge they paused, an imperfect, unexpected family now made whole. Sometimes they realized love doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It waits quietly, in the silent courage of a dog, in a faint cry beneath the stars, and in the bravery of two hearts willing to hope. And when it finds you, it doesn't just change your life, it becomes your family.